All right, thank God this is clear because nobody could ever see me otherwise. It would just be my head. We used to have a shorter podium, but it was darker.
Good, ma'am?
I'm fine. I am good. I am ready. I'll introduce us and then I'll pull Anna up and she'll start the whole program. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Doesn't seem, can you hear me? Okay. It's usually not a problem for me to be heard. So welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. In 1976, 13 visionary women came together to form CMC to connect people and ideas through community conversation. 47 years later, that conversation is still going strong. CMC explores public policy issues, current events, and spotlights lessons in leadership at forums just like this one every week. From its beginning, CMC has welcomed everyone. I'm Deb Hackathorn, principal with Civic Point Government Relations. I'm also proud to serve as the chair of the CMC Board of Trustees. For those of you joining us by live stream, we're coming to you today from our beautiful new home in Columbus's historic Italian village, the Ellis. So welcome to all of you at home. Let's begin today by welcoming our newest CMC members, Katie Coy and Gil Gradizar with the Jazz Arts Group. Welcome. Shannon Palma with the Autistic Self-Reliant Support Network and HER Academy. Thank you, welcome Shannon. And from WOSU Public Media, please welcome Rob Dahl, George Davis III, Hannah Horstman, Anthony Paget, and Erica Wilson. Welcome. If you're not already a CMC member, well, we think you need to work on that. Membership to CMC is open to everyone. By becoming a CMC member, you are playing a key role in supporting civil discourse in Central Ohio. And it's really easy to become a CMC member. Just visit columbusmetroclub.org to join. Please do speak to a member of CMC staff while you're here. They've already been pointed out. They'd be happy to help you become CMC's newest member. If you scan the QR code at your table, you'll see many generous organizations that support this not-for-profit Columbus Metropolitan Club. We could not exist without their support. And speaking of supporters, I get to thank myself. Thank you to today's forum sponsors, Civic Point. Yay, thank you, Civic Point. Thank you to WOSU Public Media. And thank you to today's forum partner, the League of Women Voters of Central Ohio. Thank you also to our gracious host, the Ellis, for its generous support. We're also grateful to the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation and to the Columbus Dispatch for presenting our live stream, being carried now on CMC's social media platforms. Let's thank everyone today for their support. And now on to our program, Millennial Voices in Ohio Politics. If it looks like millennials are everywhere, well, they are. Millennials are now America's largest generation, surpassing the baby boomer generation in size, and it's a gap that widens every year. If you know anyone between roughly the ages of 27 and 42 today, then you know a millennial. Defined generally as anyone born between 1981 and 1996. Baby boomers continue to dominate much of the American political scene, but there are plenty of millennial lawmakers to be found at Ohio State House. Today, we're going to hear what's on their minds and how politics might change once those baby boomers step off of America's political stage. It is my great pleasure today to introduce our distinguished panelists from the Ohio House of Representatives. First, on my left here, Representative Thomas Hall from the 46th House District, which is Middletown, Ohio, down in Southwest Ohio, Warren Butler County. Welcome, Thomas. From the second, there you go. From the second Ohio House District, we have Democratic Representative Latina Humphrey from the far East Columbus, Franklin County area. Welcome. We also have Democratic Representative Dontavius Gerald from the sort of East Central Columbus, Franklin County. And finally, from the 64th Ohio House District, we have Republican Representative Nick Santucci from the Warren, Ohio, but Trumbull County area in Northeast Ohio. Returning once again to CMC, please welcome our moderator, Anna Staver, the new host of WOSU's All Sides with Anna Staver. That sounds pretty good, right? You can read more about today's panelists and their biographies by scanning the QR code at your table. Anna, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm just gonna bring this up a little bit. A little bit of oh, it's okay. There we go. Is that good? Okay, so thank you all for being here. And before we begin, I just want to take care of a quick housekeeping note. So the questions I've prepared are really open to anyone, but so we have a little order. I'm going to start with Representative Hall here. So you're going to answer the first question first, and then anyone can jump in. Then Representative Humphrey, Representative Gerald. It's just about who goes first. So with that said, I want to start by saying generations can be defined by a handful of big moments. So events, tragedies, even elections that define who we are by our shared memories and shared experiences of living through those moments when the world changes. So for baby boomers, it might have been the civil rights movement, the assassinations of Martin Luther King and JFK, the end and the start of the war in Vietnam. For Gen X, it was the Challenger explosion, many of whom watched it in their elementary school classrooms. It could be the resignation of President Richard Nixon or the fall of the Berlin Wall. But for us millennials, we experienced September 11th as children. The old of us was 18 when the Twin Towers were hit. We came of age as computers and cell phones became household items. We shepherded in the birth of social media. We celebrated the capture of Osama bin Laden, and many of us graduated into the Great Recession. So, and the age that we experienced these events matter. So, not to put Representative Hall on the spot, but we're about a decade apart, even though we're both millennials. So we both remember the terrorist attack on 9/11, but I was 17 and he was 6. So, so we had two totally different experiences on that day. So my first question to all of our panelists is a way of introducing yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about that first big historical moment that you remember.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for the opportunity. We good, Doug? All right, we want to make sure. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Thomas Hall, State Representative from Southwest Ohio. I am the baby of the group. I have the youngest member badge for this term, I think, and last term, not because I enjoy that, but I really enjoy getting to work with my colleagues here today and with Anna in a lot of ways. Everybody has a journey, and I was 50-50 if I was going to share this, but everybody always asks, well, you're so young, you know, why'd you get into politics? Was there something that happened? Was there something that you were really passionate about? And for me, it was because someone told me no. Someone told me I couldn't do it. And that's what started my journey in politics. at the local level back home in a
Spite
population.
is a great motivator.
Yes, yes. I come from a small community of about 8,500 people. I knocked on literally every single door in that community. And it really showed me, kind of what I was capable of, not only in politics, but in life, being able to put yourself out there, take a stand on issues, and really try to give back to the community that gave me so much growing up. So come from a small town, Southwest Ohio. We're in our second term in the Ohio House. Really appreciate the Columbus Metropolitan Club allowing us to be a panelist today. Your CEO, love and honor is all I have to say, as we're both Miami graduates from Southwest Ohio. But to get to the question at hand, the first event that I can remember is 9/11. Sitting on my parents' bed at our house in our small community. My dad is our local fire chief back home. So we spent the day at the local firehouse, and it was kind of an eerie feeling because nobody came around. It was, one of those days that sticks with me, even though I was 6 and you were 17. But at the same time, I think that having the experiences we've had shared, and we'll get into these more today, really helps the Ohio legislature move it forward and bring in that new generation of leaders. Everywhere I go, I talk to people about their experiences and what's passionate about them. Tonight, I'm going to Miami University to speak to a group of college kids about their future. And what's important is people to have a belief that they can do it. I think a lot of our youth nowadays don't have that belief anymore. They get involved with technology. They start to self-doubt themselves. And I really think that us leaders up here have a job to make sure that next generation is better than us. We want to lead this state in a better place than we started. So I'll turn it over to Rep. Humphrey.
Well, first of all, I think that deserves a round of applause if you all would honor him. Well, as was stated, I'm State Representative Latina M. Humphrey. I have the pleasure of representing Ohio's 2nd House District, and I'm going to say I represent the entire east side of Columbus, including far east Columbus. But certainly a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the CEO, Sophia, for asking and inviting us to be here. Thank you to our moderator for today. But I guess to get straight to the question, we were asked about one of those trying times, pivotal times in our lives, and I would have to echo, it was September 11th. I was 9 years old. I was in the 4th grade, and if you're here and you're from Columbus, I went to Duxbury Park Arts Impact, and I remember sitting in the classroom. It was a normal day. I think it was like mid-morning, normal day, and all of a sudden the television was on, and everybody kind of was in disarray. Our teacher was she handled the situation really well, but you could tell that it was impacting her. And for us as students, I don't know that we thoroughly understood what was going on, but what we did understand is that something was wrong in our country. And I remember distinctively parents picking up their children left and right. In fact, my mother came to pick me up as well. And I just remember not thoroughly just again understanding what was happening, but something was wrong. Our folks in New York were not safe. And honestly, we felt like we were not safe all the way, even in the state of Ohio. So that was one of the most pivotal times in my early life, being a millennial, just kind of remembering that and how it truly had an impact on me. So thank you for the question.
Well, yes. Well, good afternoon, everybody. How you doing today? First and foremost, to Sophia, to Ann, to each and every one of you, thank you so much for being here. You could be somewhere else, but you decided to listen to us talk. And so I want to say thank you. My name is Dontavius Gerald. I just so happen to be a state representative representing Ohio's 1st House District. If I was by myself, I would say the best House District. But since I am with my colleagues, it's the Great House District. And it's basically where, well, next GA, I'm going to be representing where we are right now. But currently, I represent the lion's share of Central Ohio's region. And so Y2K, I don't know about you all, but I remember my father carting in these huge tubs of that's like this black container, saying we got to put water in it because what's going to happen when all the technology is gone. And so I remember, and interestingly enough, and I think my dad's watching, we still have those black containers in our basement because we don't know when that Y2K. And so I remember like literally sitting in our room, my living room, we were praying together. And we were like, okay, we were counting down the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 to New Year's. And then the lights shut off, right? But they didn't shut off because Y2K happened. They shut off because my little brother touched the light. And so it was really a moment of, I never forget that, because it was like, we were praying so hard, like, Lord, don't let these lights turn off. And it, and sure enough, the lights stayed on. And so I just, again, I'm really excited and privileged to be here. I'm in my second term. I serve as the assistant minority leader, one of the youngest in the country. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to represent people. And when I think about the work that I do each and every day, is about impacting humanity. And I'll get a little bit deeper into that in my why as to what does it mean when you say impact humanity. But as a millennial, I think about that. It's about what are we doing, as my colleague said, to be that strong link in the chain, so that when somebody comes behind us, there's a foundation of support that's going to take us to a better place. And so happy to be here, and thank you all.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nick Santucci. I'm the state representative for the 64th district in Trumbull County. So Warren City is my metro city. And I always say, but oftentimes folks say, oh, you're from Youngstown. And I say, I'm not from Youngstown, I'm from Warren. Youngstown is a totally different county and a different metro city. And so I'm from Warren City, grew up in Howland, graduated from Howland in 2009, moved away to John Carroll University, graduated from there in 2013, and moved back home right off of the cusp of the 2012 election. So I was a political science major, all fired up for government and politics, and began working in county government, before I moved into the Youngstown-Warren Regional Chamber, where I had a great career path and then ultimately ran for state rep. So thanks for having me today. I appreciate CMC for inviting me today. It's an honor to be here with my colleagues. To answer the question, Anna, actually the 2000 election was one of the pivotal moments in my brain. I was in government class, and we were assigned to do current events, the who, what, where, when, and why of what was happening throughout our country. And I had my mom's side I grew up with them. They were very conservative. And my dad's side, I came from more JFK Democrat side, where my grandfather was a union bricklayer. And so I was constantly getting both sides of the political spectrum when I would have holiday dinners and things like that. And so politics, I felt, was in my blood at a very young age. And the 2000 election was really pivotal for me because of the current events and the things that I had to do for my history class. But on top of that, Y2K was another one. I remember the countdown and being scared. I didn't quite understand what that all meant at the time. I thought the sun was going to go out. Actually, at the time, I didn't know what was going to go on. The lights were going to go out, which meant the sun was going to go out. And then, of course, 9/11, I remember being in my, I think it was my 5th grade class. Mrs. Barba was my teacher, and my mom came and picked me up as well. And I remember going home and just being infatuated with the television, watching these attacks go on. And actually I believe it was the 3rd plane that flew over the state of Ohio that landed in Pennsylvania, actually flew over our Youngstown-Warren Regional Airport. And so we were very terrified and concerned and scared. And so lots of unfortunate political impacts throughout our history, but I do believe Ohio's future is bright, and I'm happy to be here with my colleagues, happy to be here with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
My father was a Republican and my mother's a Democrat, so I know exactly what that dinner table is like. But so now that we can place you all on the millennial timeline, I wanted to talk about the major events that shaped your life. So it could be a world event, it could be a personal event, but how they pushed you perhaps towards public service, or maybe even tried to push you away.
That is a tough question when you put it in that lens. But I think what shifted me into wanting to be in politics, if you will, really, I think was personally what I was going through at the time. I'll tell you that I always wanted to serve. I'll tell you that I always wanted to lead, but didn't always have the infrastructure or the support or the foundation to be able to do that. But I was in college when I made up my mind that service was something that I wanted to do. I think what further amplified that was Trayvon Martin in 2000, and I believe it was 12. It kind of shifted my mindset, something that I had already been thinking about, making sure that all people were treated equitably and treated fair, but then also making sure that Black and brown folks were also treated that same way. And that kind of catapulted me into further trying to figure out how I would serve. But it really wasn't until the end of 2015 that I really kind of put boots on the ground and put myself in a position of service. And again, it started from personal issues in my life, but I kind of just made my mind up based off of what I seen and what was going on in our country. And I started off just by thinking, you know, the best way I can get in the game without having the support, without having the education, would be to serve. And I actually seen that a post that kind of pushed me into that on our council president's Instagram at the time before he was council president. He said, all good leaders serve, and it clicked. I understood that I didn't have the background. I understood that I had some ways to go, but I decided that service was something that I wanted to do, and it started with the Flint water crisis. So I guess I could even start there as well. What I decided to do as a single mother, I decided to drive back and forth to Flint, Michigan off my own dime, use my tax return to help the folks there, fixed up my car, drove back and forth for 6 months to help them on off weekends, helping at the YWCA, and helping with our county party. I mean, anything that I could do to put myself in a position of service, that was something that I wanted to do. And it catapulted me to meeting my best friend. You probably see us up here cackling, but this is my best friend. And at one point, he was the president of the Ohio Young Black Democrats. And I met him, and he kind of helped me and shifted me and mentored me to be where I am today. So it really was trying to figure out what I could do to serve. Also understanding that if you want to change things in your community, if you want to change things around you, I learned this from Dr. King and learning and studying, you probably need to start by doing it legislatively. But then in addition to that, you need to learn how to serve your community. And so he helped me to see that as well, in addition to me trying to figure out my own path. So hopefully that answered your question, but that's how I got here today, was service. There were no shortcuts for me. There were no handouts for me. I worked for everything it is that I have and to be even being in this position. But I got here because I served. You can see that, like I said, YWCA, YMCA, Central Ohio Young Black Dems, whatever I could do. And then I realized just again that I just needed to try to find a different avenue as well. So again, I hope that answered your question, and thank you for the question.
I know I got to talk. Ooh, this mic is hot. I love it. So I know that I need to talk about myself, but Representative Humphrey and really my colleague, Representative Humphrey, really has been a stalwart champion. And it is truly a humbling experience to know that when you reach up and reach out and reach down and try to pull somebody up, this is what it looks like, right? When you share the stage with people so that they can be their best self and the lives that they transform. So it's a blessing. Can you all give her applause if you can? That is my homie, my friend, you know. So I was in 7th grade at the time. I am, anyone from Cleveland? Any Clevelanders in the house? Hey, okay. Shout out to my Franklin County Treasurer's Office, by the way. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, you can clap up for that. That's my family. So before I was a state representative, I was a kid from Cleveland. And I survived a lot of things. I lived in the Huff neighborhood. If you type in Huff neighborhood, race riots in 1969, you will see a lot of history of racial tensions and economic hardship. And the reality is that community looks much like it did, to some degree, like it did back in the day. And so imagine as a kid growing up, I did not see a lot of opportunity. And I took 3 buses to get to my middle school, which is a magnet school, Garrett Morgan School of Science. And I was that kid who used to, roll a very heavy book bag around with me. You know, those rolly book bags? I was one of those kids, right? Stuffed it with anime and all types of stuff. And I remember one day getting on the first bus to get to downtown Cleveland to get home. And the bus was filled. It was filled with nothing but people standing. And there was one seat open. And so I was like, I'm taking the seat because my bag's heavy. I'm not trying to stand. And so I sat next to a woman who was homeless. It was an African-American woman who was homeless. And there was the kids on the bus. I'm going to say the high school because it is what it is. Ignatius High School. There were some kids that came from that school, came on the bus, and they basically started cackling and talking about this Black woman I was sitting next to. And what was really interesting, as a 7th grader, sat there hearing these taunts and just horrible language towards this woman who did not ask for any of that. It was the silence of people around me. No one said nothing. And I remember I got kind of mad. I was going to say pissed, but oh well. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, why is no one else speaking up? And so I stood up and said, you can't talk about this woman like that. You don't know her story. You don't know what she's been through. I didn't know where the words were coming out. I don't know where they were coming from. They were just coming out. And the high school students replied with, is that your mama? And if y'all see, I wear a suit today, but back then it would have been a whole different situation. And miraculously enough, as I was about to take it off all my stuff, and like, you ain't gonna talk about my mama, the bus driver stopped the bus and proceeded to kick these students off the bus. And then everybody was shouting, yeah, good job, yeah, that's great, I'm glad you did that. But I was more mad that no one else said anything, that I was the 7th grader that had to stop this moment of this taunting, this disrespect towards a woman who you didn't know her lived experience. And I didn't know what that meant to me until years later. After I got off the bus, the woman was crying, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. She had said nothing the entire way. And as I thought about this moment in college, Martin Luther King says, to serve, you only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And I learned in that moment that I loved this person enough to speak with them, speak for them, fight for them, even if my voice was shaking as well. And that was the moment that I knew that I wanted to do this work, because I'm willing to speak up and speak out even when my voice shakes. And for that, people's lives can be saved. And so that is what, like, the moment that led me and propelled me into this space. And plus, I also wanted to be Oprah, just a little added note. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. That's what led me into the journey.
Well, I commend you, Representative, for your voice and for standing up for individuals that have that situation. I agree. I think you did the right thing in that moment, and God bless you, and God bless her too. My experience was a little different. Obviously, I graduated from John Carroll and I moved back home. I mentioned I was off the cusp of the 2012 election, so I was all fired up. And I began working in the Youngstown Warren Chamber, where I did economic development. I learned how to attract and retain businesses into our area. I then moved into education and workforce development, which I got to understand our region and understand what our business community needed in order to hire a qualified, capable human capital. And my area, Warren City, we are considered depressed. We have a drug issue in our market. 40 to 60% of applicants fail their drug test. We have human trafficking concerns in my region, in my district. Ohio is ranked number 5 in the worst human trafficking states in our country. And the list goes on. We have many roadblocks back in the Mahoning Valley. But as I began to learn in the chamber about all of these challenges, I recognized we needed someone to really step up. And back to Representative Humphreys's, public service messaging, that's how I felt too. I don't think I'm special. I don't think I'm great. But I do think that my career trajectory has given me the unique opportunity to allow me to step into this role with the background and the knowledge that I've had throughout my career to really serve and represent the people that I've grown up with. And it's an honor of a lifetime to serve the community that I was raised in, the community that I went to school in, that I graduated in, and the community that I came back home to. It's an amazing, humbling experience. And serving is the best job I could ever do. There's days, I'm sure my colleagues would agree, that we have rough days, and we get up and we do our push-ups, but we get into work and we serve the people that we're elected to serve. And I'm grateful to have this job. So thank you.
Oh, is your mic on?
Test.
There we go.
Sorry about that. I just want to start off by saying, I've gotten to travel, see a lot of great places in the United States and outside. And, I got to travel with Rep. Gerald's a few months ago, halfway around the world. And his Oprah comment, he might not ever be Oprah, but he's got a heart like Oprah. And I sincerely mean that. And if he had the money, he would give everybody a car in this room today. You get a car, yeah. And he's the reason I have this jacket on today, because I woke up this morning and I seen where it was, and I'm like, it's got to be Rep. Gerald's district or Rep. Humphrey. They got to be close to there. And I was like, he can't outdress me today. I'm going to be in his backyard today. But I love hearing the stories because, just like we have stories, you all have stories. And I wish we had time today to hear all of your stories of why you do things. Growing up, I always heard that there is the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. I add a day to that. I add, for me, the day I was baptized, actually with Rep. Gerald's, 8,000, 6,000 miles away in a different country. But to me, I think my story is a little bit different in a number of ways. Both my parents growing up were first responders. So growing up, my dad was, like I said, our fire chief. He was also a county sheriff's officer in our county. And my mom, she ran on the life squad and did some other things. Now she does real estate. So for me, growing up, all we knew was service to our community. And all I ever knew growing up was going down to the firehouse or going to the township trustee meetings and getting involved. And for me, it was looking at our township of 8,500 people, and realizing that there was no voice for my generation or any of the young generations. It was predominantly an older person's job, and they didn't really do too much outreach in our community. And I felt like that void was lacking in our community. And that's when I jokingly said in my first remarks, I mentioned that I was interested in running. Kind of like Rep. Santucci, I was, so super excited. I was helping out, in official things and political things. And they said, you're too young. You'll never win. And I was like, okay, I'll see you in November kind of thing. And for me, it was never a pride thing. And, the more I get into this job, the more I realize, the impact we can have on our communities in such good ways. And we do have some long days. We have some rough days. But to think, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in the best state in the country. And think about, we have 4 representatives here, and we're not yelling at each other. We're not, complaining. We're not arguing. This is democracy in a lot of ways. And whereas we disagree on some issues, that's perfectly fine. But it's about getting together and, showing people that this can work. This can be possible. There are so many issues we face. There's so many bills we vote on a bipartisan basis. And I think there's always a false notion that, Republicans hate Democrats, Democrats hate Republicans. Both their ideas suck. I want to vote for somebody else. But in the State House, it's not like that. I think, Anna, with your years of service, in the State House, you've seen a lot of bipartisanness. I kind of want to know your story as well. You're a millennial. We can't forget that.
Oh my gosh.
But just appreciate the opportunity to give back to my community, because I have one goal in life, and this may be a little too personal, but my dad's my best friend, and I love my dad more than anything in this world. And for me, I want to make him proud. That's it. I don't have a goal of climbing the political ladder or doing something outside of being a state representative. But But to wake up every day and I think about that, how can I make him proud today? What can I do to move our communities forward? And for him to say, hey, I'm proud of you. And that's, I might get emotional, but that might be the most important thing to me, is just to lay down and I know, and I made him proud.
I'll tell you my story afterwards. I don't want to take up time from you guys. It's a clever dodge, but it is. I've learned from the best. But before we move on to the next question, I just want to quickly let our audience know, and those watching online, that the last portion of our conversation will be devoted to your questions. So if you have one, you can start to formulate it. If you're here in the room, you'll go to the mic in the corner back there. Online, you can drop it into the chat. So just as so we all know, but I want to talk about some of the issues that seem to really be facing our generation. So millennials finally crossed the 50% mark on home ownership this year, but we're well behind older generations. So baby boomers, for example, are 80% homeowners. And in fact, millennials are about half as likely to own a home as young adults were in 1975. So if we should be incentivizing home ownership, I guess that's the first question. And if we should, what should the state be doing? What should that look like?
So there's a couple of things I want to pin to that question. So I thank you, Ann, for asking it. In my district, around 54.6% of homeowner occupied housing, the residents, the owners, use 30% or more of their income to pay for that home. And so the reality is, while you may have a home in my district, you may have struggles putting food on the table, taking your kids out to a nice dinner on a Saturday, paying for prescription drugs that you need to stay well, or even showing up to a doctor's office. And so while it is incredibly important that home ownership, and we increase that, we have to have home ownership that is affordable. And so I do want to pin that first before I talk about our remarks. I have a very unique opportunity is to sit on finance committee, and we were able to pass, well, even though I did not support this budget, but in this budget, we had the first time homeowner tax credit, which I believe is going to do some good in helping to support families who are interested in buying their first home. But the reality is we also need to address the rising property taxes. Yes, I'm glad that folks' homeowner, their valuation of their house are going up. That's great. But when you are in a position where you are being priced out of buying a home because the property taxes are simply too high, and you may not receive the 10-year tax abatement in some neighborhoods, you may not receive that, right? There's some neighborhoods who may have that as a part of their package. And so we have to make sure that we do everything that we can. And I know some of my colleagues can talk about that as well for some of their bills, but we need to do everything we can to not just address property taxes, but also address why, what's blocking people out of buying homes, and that could be a myriad of things. One, we still are not making enough money to maintain and sustain a home, right? We are dealing with rising healthcare costs. We are dealing with lack of transportation access that is hard for us to connect to the career centers of the future. And so when we think about what does it mean to build an ecosystem where a person like me and us on this panel can buy a home, is about also looking at the other systems that intersect what home ownership really means, and successful home ownership at that. So.
So I have a different perspective as well. I appreciate your remarks, Representative. In the Mahoning Valley, we have a lot of nice neighborhoods that could be really wonderful first homes for millennials or for anybody, but we just haven't invested in those neighborhoods and revitalized them. And so one thing, when I announced that I was running for state rep, I always worked on, I called it the 4 L's that I wanted to see improved in the Mahoning Valley: better lighting, better litter control, better landscaping, and supported and improved law enforcement. If you can do those 4 things, you'll see neighborhoods completely change and cities revitalized completely. And I think the home ownership, there's no doubt inflation has impacted everything, from supply chain issues all the way through to gas prices, on and on and on. Homes, of course, were impacted by that as well. And so my vision and my hope is that we in the legislature can continue to work on revitalizations of neighborhoods and homes and build good family units, so that millennials can step into their first home and rebuild a neighborhood and be a part of that process, and then move on as their career, changes and grows. And so that's kind of my vision and my hope for the state.
I don't know about you guys, but I was one of those ones that refinanced in 2020. So I'm married to my house.
Oh, me too.
For a long time.
I have like a 2.9% interest rate. I'm dying in this house.
Yes. I am married to this house in our small community. I think, how much time do I have?
About a minute.
Okay. Well, I could talk about this to you guys for hours. And we've talked at length about this. Some of the reforms we're working on in the House with property taxes. We have a bill right now that's in the Senate looking at the valuation, as Rep. Gerald's talked about, looking at the valuations, trying to curve these valuation spikes that we're seeing. Rep. Isaacson, who is a dear friend, he's from Cincinnati, Democrat member and Republican member. We're both working together, both in that millennial, I believe he's millennial, both in that millennial class, working to freeze property tax increases for people of a certain age who make under a certain amount of money every year. So there are so many attempts we're looking at, but what I've realized going through this process of the trying to update in Butler County, where I'm from, is this is not just a Butler County thing. This is a statewide thing, and that people are getting taxed out of their own homes, as was talked about before. And we don't want that. We encourage so many people to come to Ohio. We encourage so many businesses to relocate to Ohio. But what about the people that pay property taxes now? And that's kind of been my focus as we go through this term, working on property tax reform with those two bills. And the last thing I'll say, in the recent budget that we just passed in the June, early July, we created a property tax study committee, bipartisan committee, House and Senate, to look at some of the long-term solutions to property taxes in the state of Ohio. So really excited. I would implore you all, I don't know where any of you live, but I would implore you to reach out to your state representative to talk about that property tax study committee, because that could have some real long-lasting effects for Ohioans.
So, yeah, you guys can give a round of applause for that.
Oh, I think they want us to move on to the audience questions, unless you have something quick you really want to add.
I mean, it was going to be quick.
Okay.
So really quickly, I think that we need to invest, and I think we're trying to do that in unconventional ways for young people to be a part of home ownership. So there are two organizations here that I'm automatically thinking about, one being Homeport, which kind of trains and prepares people in order to become homeowners. The other is Move to Prosper, more so in the sense of taking folks from one neighborhood that may not be as beneficial as it could be to another neighborhood. But in addition to what they do is they prepare folks to be financially competent and so on. So I think we need to do an investment in unconventional ways to programming and entities that are already here trying to help folks. So that's what I will add to the conversation. Thank you.
Great. All right, so I cannot see your name tag all the way from here, so. Oh, is it on?
Got it. I got it, Doug. You're good. All right. I'm Mantra Moody, so I work for CMC, and I will be curating questions online. And if anyone has a question in the room, please make sure to line up behind me. And also, to get to as many questions as we can, please keep your answers brief. Okay, so the first question is from Mindy Justice. What do the panelists think the millennial version of the American dream is? Is it different from other generations?
Can I do this real quick?
Sure.
So a better Ohio was one where a family doesn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. They can live in a community that's safe, that's syringe free, particularly talking about the drug addiction issues in our communities, that we're not seeing the gun proliferation where our young babies are dying, that Black women can breathe life into this world because we're the worst state in the country when it comes to Black maternal health, and we can build an environment that's truly free of environmental disasters. Right now, we are in communities where there's lead, asbestos, the soil has been contaminated, and how does that impact the future? We have to do something about changing those conditions so that every single family, regardless of the zip code they were born in, they have a road to prosperity, not just for Ohio, but really across the state. Across the nation.
Hello, I'm Bill Wayhoff with Steptoe and Johnson. And this is a little different issue where we all know that relationships between and among yourselves are extremely important to get things done. What are the one or two things that each of you does to foster those relationships with each other? Thank you.
Okay. I'll be very brief. I think two things. I think number one, we show up every day. Number two, we have respect for each other. My district is drastically different than Rep. Humphreys, than Rep. Gerald's, and even Rep. Santucci's. But having that mutual respect that, hey, I go home, my district's 70-30 Republican. They understand that their districts are much different, and understanding that we can't be together on every issue. We have difference of opinion. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for Ohio, and I think that's what people forget is we are legislators, but we're also people. We pay taxes, we contribute to society. We want what's best for Ohio. It's just getting to that path, and that pathway is different, is my opinion.
Anyone else want to hop in on that? Oh.
Testing. I would just say talking. Breaking down the walls that, media has, I think, really clouded the narrative around what is bipartisanship. And so, we are actively, as millennials, a lot of times we're always talking about issues and figuring out how we find common ground. And so having the ability to sit and talk and to share our stories with each other, to find that commonality, that's how we begin to change the environment around us.
Testing. Okay, really quickly, I think understanding your district. So like my colleague here has said that his district is completely different from mine. I think for me, the reason why I foster relationships and reason why I have to do that is because I understand the makeup of my district. There are lots of areas of opportunity, infant mortality, high rental evictions, you name it. I don't have the luxury of going into the State House and not working across the aisle. That's the bottom line. I don't have it. So when I go into these conversations, I hate to say that it's transactional, but I go in with the mindset, if I've had to deliver, I don't have a choice not to be able to do that. And so when you have that mindset of bringing something back to your district, you'll talk to whoever and not selling your soul, but you'll have conversations with whoever you need to have conversations about so that you can bring something back to your district because they are counting and depending on you. So that's what I'll add to that question.
And I'll say very briefly, a lot of the issues that we all face and everybody in this room faces, not always are partisan issues. And I think a lot of times we forget that too. The whole state has a drug issue. The whole state has workforce development problems. The whole state has human trafficking concerns. I think to Representative Hall's point, we all represent different districts and we all want Ohio to be number one. It's just the route that we get there. But we do need to find synergy on what projects or problems can we all be unified on and solve. And then some of the outlier problems, we could put those aside. They still need addressed, but we put those aside until we get some of the major things done. So thanks for your question.
All right, this question is from Bill Lafayette. Far too many millennials are disengaged from public affairs or turned off by the nastiness and lack of respect. How can we help younger people understand the importance of being involved?
Well, one of the pride and joys that I've had, besides passing 6 bills in my first term in office, has been bringing young people to the State House. I represent Central Ohio, Central Columbus, a part of it. And I always ask in rooms, who's ever been to the State House, right? And it doesn't matter if you are a person who is 50 plus, a millennial, a Gen Xer, or I don't know what the Y, Gen Z, there you go, XYZ. The reality is so many of our young people particularly are disconnected because they've never been in a place. They've never been in the people's house, right? And so I do everything I can to bring schools, to bring classes, to bring programs that are mentoring young people into the space. And I always ask, what was one thing you want to do or one law you want to change? And then that's opens the door for them to begin to talk about, well, we need to fix gun safety, or I have a gang problem in my district. And then we talk about what does that look like in creating a law that's going to impact the issue that you care about. And that's how we begin to connect. But it's intentional connection with people, right? It's that spirit work, so that our young people see value in the work that I'm doing as much as they see that I have value in their voice and in the process.
So Rep. Santucci, I thought you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if that's
go ahead,
okay. I'll be brief too. When I ran for state representative, I always said to my audience, if you look out your window and you don't like the way it looks, we're all responsible for that. And we have to empower each other to step up when we disagree with the way our state or our local municipalities or cities are being run. And so to engage young people, they have a voice and they need to step up and speak out. I talked about my 4 L's, but beautification is a really big thing for me in the state. I'm very passionate about that because that's the way we attract families back to our areas. That's the way we attract businesses back. Nobody wants to move to Ohio if they don't feel safe, if it's not beautiful, and they don't want to raise a family here if that's the case. And so my response always to young people or anybody is speak up and elevate your voice, because a mentor of mine always has said to me that we are generalists. You are all the experts. If you're not knocking on our doors and telling us what you need done, we are not mind readers. We can't represent you to the best of our ability if there's no communication. And so that is not only with our millennials, but that's with everybody in this room and everybody that's watching and everybody across this beautiful state.
Quickly, oh my gosh, okay. Really quickly, I think that it is incumbent upon us, not only is it incumbent upon our constituency to come to us, it's incumbent upon us as legislators to be in our communities. We understand overwhelmingly why our constituents are apathetic to the process. We get that. And one of the things we do in House District 2 is very unique. We go to them. And another thing that we do is not to be a publicity stunt, but we find people who are influential to them. Case in point, October 14th, I had a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and we brought local rappers who are big, not only here in Columbus, but really across our state, signed to large artists. And we came to them, we met with them in a room, and we said, look, we're having problems in our community, but the only people who can necessarily reach them more than I wish I could is you. And what we have done is we packed out a room with over 200 people with our babies in a room, not only playing basketball, but watching. And we were able to say what's important about why you should vote, why you should do these things. And then it creates an opportunity for them to come and talk to me about House Bill 50, which is a reentry bill that passed nearly unanimously out of the House to help folks who have been justice involved and who are returning citizens find some type of mechanism for housing. That's what we do. We go to them. We can't always expect people to come to us. I need you to understand that I'm here and I'm not just some fly by night and you just see me at churches on Sunday and see me in communities when it's election season. But if I'm committed to staying in my community 24/7, you see me, you know I'm accessible, you know that you can touch me, you know that you can talk to me. That's important. We can't just blame it on everybody else. Oh, they need to come to us. No, we have to be in our communities, knee deep, boots on the ground. And when we do that, then we have relationships. That's how I've been able to foster relationships. That's why when I walk in the stores, people are like, I know you. May not can pronounce your name, but I know you. And that's important. So that's what I'll add to that question.
Yeah. I think, so it looks like we might have time for one more question. And I would just quickly add that, having observed how the sausage gets made over at the State House for a couple of years now, the lobbyists are always pushing their ideas. So you should definitely be pushing yours.
Thanks very much for each of your service. I'm not a lobbyist, but 3 of my colleagues here at the table are. And I think it's timely because this morning, National Public Radio had a story about millennials, particularly those in Congress, and whether they use social platforms. The one of the day was TikTok. And so I'm interested to hear, I'm Frank Reed. I worked in the Senate when I was 19 years old. I was a staffer. My wife worked in the House. And we've done a lot to help people run campaigns. And nowadays, when you knock on doors, a lot of times people don't answer the door. And even if they do, there's very few that want to engage you in conversation. So I'm curious, what's your issue? You know, Tuesday, November 7th, we're going to have a statewide election on issue 1 and issue 2. Sort of a loaded question here, but what's your views on issue 1 and 2? And what's your views on social platform?
I'll go first. I chair the Tech and Innovation Committee in the Ohio House. I agree with TikTok not on state-owned devices. We actually voted on House Bill 17 to not allow it on state-owned devices. I am a no on issue 1 and no on issue 2. My district, as again, is, and you touched on what I wanted to say. We have to set the standard, and our standard is a lot like Rep. Humphrey. I'm disappointed you didn't call Rep. Upchurch and I to play basketball. We would have came and played basketball with you. But we are, like I said, a very conservative district. We've knocked thousands of doors in our district, and you know, the decision Tuesday is up to Ohioans. It's not up to us up here. So I encourage all of you, whether you're on the yes or no side, to obviously get out and vote and make your voice be heard. But for our district, like I said, we represent. I think that personal use and then state-owned devices is two different things with technology. We use technology in our races. It works. It reaches a lot of people. But at the end of the day, you know, we represent a district, and that's my thoughts from my district in Southwest Ohio. I don't think so. I had to check on that because when we were doing this bill, I'm like, do I have a TikTok? Because we obviously, just like you guys, I mean, everybody sends you TikToks. There's a lot of information on TikTok. So I think I had to go back. I was like, oh, I better make sure I don't have one.
So, so you hit me with 3 questions. I'll be real quick. I am Don Tavius on all my social media platforms. Please feel free to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great, and TikTok. First off, I'm a yes on issue 1. Politicians should not be in the doctor's offices where women are making decisions about their body, their body. 2, I'm yes on issue 2 because at the end of the day, the reality is we're seeing a changing landscape, and when it comes to marijuana, oftentimes the people who are incarcerated look like me and Representative Humphrey. And until we begin to change the reality where many of our communities are unfortunately being hurt and harmed and futures thrashed simply because of marijuana usage, I don't think we can ever get ahead, particularly in communities that look like ours. And so I'm a yes on both, but for issue 1, it is incredibly important that we as politicians don't have a say in what is family matters in each and every one of your individual lives.
So we definitely want to give you both an opportunity to answer, but I'm getting the wrap it up. So very brief. Think like a tweet.
Yeah, Representative Hall said it best. I agree with Representative Hall.
There you go.
Testing. Yes on 1, yes on 2. Social media is very, very important. I use TikTok. I use all of them. You can find me, Rep. Latina M. Humphrey. And thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring that baby down. Okay. Well, I hope you all feel inspired about the future, having heard from these millennial legislators. Thank you so much to today's sponsors, Civic Point, and WOSU Public Media, and today's partner, the League of Women Voters of Central Ohio. Thank you to the Ellis for your ongoing support. We also want to thank the virtual seat patrons and the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation and the Columbus Dispatch for presenting today's live stream. And of course, we couldn't do this without all of you, so thank you for being here. Our very special appreciation to our panel today, Ohio House members, Thomas Hall, Latina Humphrey, Dontavius Geralds, Nick Santucci, and our host, Anna Staver. Thank you to all. And if you like the theme, please make plans to be with us next week when our forum is unpacking the 2023 election results right here at the Ellis. Thanks again for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon.